The test kitchen at the Seoul World Food Expo smelled like 100 different countries at once. Kimchi and cumin, garlic and gochujang, thyme and tamarind all floated together in the warm air of the enormous hall. Stainless steel counters lined the space, each station claimed by chefs from every corner of the world: Japan, Italy, Mexico, Morocco, Thailand, Peru. Camera crews moved on rails. Assistants whispered. A giant digital clock counted down in bold red numbers on the far wall. At Station 17, near the back, a young Filipina in a plain black apron stirred a pot that looked far too ordinary for such a prestigious event. Her name was Leah Santos, 28 years old, line cook by salary, head chef by heart. She had grown up in Quezon City in a cramped apartment above a sari-sari store, where the smell of garlic frying in oil drifted out of the windows almost every day around 4 p.m., the unofficial start of dinner in her household. Her earliest memories of food were not of fancy plating or expensive ingredients, but of watching her Lola stand over a battered kuwali, browning chicken in shimmering fat and saying, "Ang lihim ng adobo apo, nasa tiaga. Hindi minamadali ang masarap." The secret of adobo is patience. You don't rush what's good. Now in Seoul, with the world's cameras pointed in her general direction and a mic clipped awkwardly to the collar of her borrowed chef's jacket, Leah was making exactly that: classic Filipino chicken and pork adobo. No foams, no gels, no deconstruction. Just chicken, pork belly, soy sauce, vinegar, garlic, peppercorns, bay leaves, and thyme. 2 stations over, surrounded by a buzzing crew and a stack of branded pans, stood chef Han Min-jun. At 36, Han was a celebrity in Korea and well known across Asia. Television host, restaurant owner, face of several instant noodle campaigns. He had trained in Paris, staged in New York, then come home to Seoul to elevate Korean food, as the magazines put it. His specialty was modern galbi short ribs cooked sous vide for hours, glazed with a reduction of soy, fruit, and secret spices, then plated like art. He also had a reputation for being direct. Today, the host announced in Korean, we have a special segment, Global Comfort Bowl. Chefs from different countries will present the one dish that, to them, tastes like home. Our judges will try them blindly and choose which bowl brings the most comfort. The camera cut to Han, who flashed his practiced TV smile. Of course Korean food will win, he joked. Comfort food is our specialty, the host laughed. We'll see about that, chef. We have contenders from all over. Japan brought ramen, India brought curry, America brought mac and cheese. He consulted his tablet. And from the Philippines we have adobo. Some of the Korean audience clapped politely. Many didn't know much about Filipino food beyond jollity and halo. As Leah plated her first test bowl, a small mound of rice topped with chunks of glistening chicken and pork in a dark, glossy sauce, the floor producer approached her station with a cameraman and a translator. Chef Leah from the Philippines, the host said, switching to English. What are you cooking for us today? It's just Leah, she replied with a quick smile. I'm making chicken and pork adobo. It's the most common home-cooked dish in the Philippines. We joke that if you don't know how to cook adobo, you're not allowed to get married yet. The host laughed. What makes it special? She stirred the pot, letting the camera see the sauce coat the meat. It's simple, but it tastes like every payday, every birthday where money is tight, but you still want something special. Every rainy day when you need something warm. Every household has a version. Mine is my Lola's. A few meters away, Han glanced over with mild curiosity. Adobo? He asked the nearest producer in Korean. Is that like soy sauce chicken? The producer shrugged. I think so. They use vinegar too. Han raised an eyebrow. Soy sauce and vinegar? Sounds harsh. Very basic. The host, sensing potential content, drifted toward him. Chef Han, have you tried Filipino adobo before? He shook his head. No, but I've seen videos, he said, switching to his TV perfect English as the camera swung to him. It looks like simple braised chicken. Soy sauce, vinegar, garlic. Very rustic. In Korea, we have much more complex flavor layering, fermentation, long processes. Korean food is like a symphony. That seems like one drum. The translator relayed his words to Leah's side. She stiffened but kept stirring. Would you like to try her dish before the blind tasting? The host asked. Han smiled for the camera. Sure, he said. I'm curious. They brought him a small bowl of Leah's freshly cooked adobo, hot, fragrant, steam curling upward. He took the spoon, blew on it lightly, and tasted. For a second, his expression was unreadable. The sauce hit his tongue, salty, sour, a little sweet, deeply savory from the pork fat, and brown bits deglazed from the pan. It was not subtle. It did not apologize. It came forward like someone knocking on your door with a pot and saying, "Came." Then he chuckled. "It's exactly what I thought," he said. "Salty sour, very strong, no finesse. This is home cooking. Food for poor people who need rice to make it balanced. If you eat this alone, it is too much. Korean food, we balance everything in the dish itself. This adobo is just soy sauce chicken with vinegar." There was a small, awkward laugh from some of the staff. The hostess' smile faltered. The camera held the moment. Laya heard every word through the translator's low voice. Her chest clenched. "Does this represent Filipino cuisine?" Han continued. "If so, I think you have a lot of potential to learn from Korean food. We spent generations making our food more sophisticated. This is still," he searched for the word, "basic, low people, no finesse." The words lodged like bones in her throat. She thought of her Lola, making adobo with cheaper chicken cuts, because that's what they could afford, stretching a pot to feed 8 people with one small tray of meat. She thought of OFWS eating cold adobo in containers on the other side of the world, tasting home in bites between shifts. She thought of how many times this dish had quietly held up her own life when everything else felt unstable. "I see," Leah said quietly when the translator finished. "Thank you for your feedback." When the cameras moved away, the floor around her felt heavier. "Don't mind him," said the Japanese chef at the next station, in accented English. "He is TV. TV people need drama." Leah smiled weakly. "It's fine," she said. "I'm used to people thinking our food is less." But as she turned back to her pot, she made a small decision. If they were going to laugh at her, she would at least make sure they were laughing at the best version of the dish her Lola had ever taught her. She lowered the heat, letting the sauce reduce until it clung like silk. She adjusted the vinegar until the sourness didn't just shout, it sang, high and bright over the deeper chords of soy and garlic. She let the pork fat melt into the sauce until each bite would coat the tongue and linger. She didn't change what it was. She just made it as true as possible. Hours later, the blind tasting began. The judges, 3 Koreans and 2 international guests, sat behind a panel, their backs to the kitchen. Bowls arrived one by one, carried by servers. Japanese ramen, Indian dal, American mac and cheese, Thai tom yum, Mexican pozole, Korean kimchi jjigae, Filipino adobo, and more. Each bowl was presented simply, labeled only with a number. When bowl number 7 reached them, a small aroma of soy, vinegar, and garlic floated up. One judge sniffed. "Strong," he murmured. They tasted. Around the world, viewers watched through the live stream. Filipinos in Manila, Dubai, Toronto, and Guam typed furiously in chat. "That better be the adobo. If they don't get it, we riot." Imagine choosing mac and cheese over adobo couldn't be me. On screen, something interesting happened. One Korean judge took a second bite, then a third slower. "It's salty," he said. "And sour. At first it is almost too much, but with each bite it softens. I can imagine eating this on rice and finishing the whole bowl without noticing. It's like rainy day food." The foreign judge beside him nodded. "It's not elegant," she said, "but it's powerful. It tastes like someone really wanted to feed you." Another Korean judge laughed. "It reminds me of my grandmother's cooking," she said. "Not the flavors, but the feeling. Rough around the edges, but full of heart." They moved on to other bowls. The Korean kimchi stew got praise for its depth. The Japanese ramen was admired for its balance. The Italian minestrone was called comforting in a gentle way. Then came the final vote. They each wrote their top 2 dishes on a card. An assistant tallied them. The host, milking the suspense, held the envelope to his chest. "In second place," he announced, with 3 votes. Bowl number 4, Korean kimchi jjigae. The crowd cheered. Han smiled, slightly smug. "And in first place," the host continued, with 4 votes. Bowl number 7. He paused. "The judges described it as strong, honest, and like a hug with rough hands. That dish is Filipino adobo." For a second, the room didn't react. Then the screen showed the number over Leah's station. She froze, ladle in hand. She had won. Applause rolled through the hall. The Filipino chat exploded. "Adobong Pinoy, baby. Tell him soy sauce chicken now." Lola recipes greater than culinary school. Backstage, the producers scrambled. They hadn't planned for this. This was supposed to be a nice segment where every country got a little spotlight and Korea came out looking good. Instead, their star chef had publicly mocked a dish that had just beaten his own country's comfort food in a blind test. And then someone had an idea. What if, a producer whispered, we film Han's mother tasting the dishes too? Han's mother, it turned out, was in the audience, a shy, middle-aged woman in a simple blouse, clutching her handbag. She had come to see her son film but had never been on camera herself. They invited her up gently. Ayomoni, the host said respectfully. Would you be willing to taste some food and tell us which bowl feels most comforting to you? Just from your heart? She laughed nervously. I don't know if I'm qualified, she said. I only cook for my family. That makes you more than qualified, the host replied. They set up 8 small bowls in front of her, labeled only by number. She tasted slowly, thoughtfully, the way someone who has cooked for decades does, searching not for novelty, but for something familiar and grounding. When she reached bowl 7, she paused. She took a spoonful, then another. Her eyes softened. This one, she said. Different from Korean food, but it feels like something a grandmother would make when her grandchildren come home hungry and sad. It's strong, but it makes you want more. I like this. Is that your favorite? The host asked. She nodded. Yes. The host turned to the camera, dramatic. Ayomoni chose. Bowl number 7. Filipino Adobo. The reaction online was immediate. Korean mom choosing adobo over kimchi stew? That's it, we won. Lola Power recognizes Lola Power across borders. Clips of Han dismissing adobo as poor people's soy sauce chicken were now being stitched with his own mother smiling gently and saying, it feels like something a grandmother would make. Han watched the monitor backstage, color draining from his face. Later, in an interview, he would admit the exact moment his pride started to crack wasn't the judge's vote. It was his mother's simple sentence. It feels like a grandmother's cooking, because for all his talk of sophistication, he had built his entire career on chasing the feeling of his Halmioni's food. The network sensed a bigger story and pushed it. They invited Laya and Han to sit down together for a follow-up segment. Social media promoted it heavily. Korean chef versus Filipino adobo. The rematch. Sitting under softer studio lights, without the heat of the kitchen or the performance of the expo, Han looked different. Less polished. More human. I want to start by saying I'm sorry, he said to Leah, thawing slightly. I disrespected your dish and, by extension, your culture. I spoke like someone who thought expensive training made him better than people who cook from memory and love. The judges and my mother proved me wrong. Laya, who had flown back from Manila just for this, listened carefully. In Korea, Han continued, we talk about Han, a deep feeling of sorrow and resilience in our culture. I think your adobo carries something similar. It tastes like people who have endured, who have made do, who have turned what little they had into something satisfying. That is not basic. That is, profound. He turned to her. Would you be willing, he asked, to teach me how to make your adobo properly? Not for TV, for real. I want to learn like a student. Laya thought of her Lola, of that cramped kitchen above the sari-sari store, of the years she had believed those recipes didn't matter because they weren't refined. She smiled. As long as you don't call it soy sauce chicken again, she said. The clip of him bowing and asking to learn from her hit timelines across Asia. People who had never heard of adobo before started searching it. Filipino restaurants in Seoul reported suddenly being fully booked. Home cooks posted videos of themselves stirring pots and saying, "This is my Lola's version." In the Philippines, a morning show replayed the segment, and an elderly woman in Quezon City wiped tears from her eyes as she watched. "Ma," Laya's mother said, "that's your recipe they are learning on Korean TV." Her Lola sniffed. "Matagal na nalang dapat natikman," she muttered. "Angeon lang sila humabol." They should have tasted it long ago. They're just catching up now. The lesson from that Seoul kitchen is not that Filipino food only matters once foreign judges or chefs approve it. Adobo didn't become important the day it was crowned most comforting in a Korean show. It was already important 100 years earlier in a small wooden house somewhere. When a mother added a little extra rice to the pot because a neighbor's child came over hungry, what changed that day was not the dish. It was the cameras. They finally pointed at a pot that had been quietly feeding millions of lives and said, "This is worth seeing." And when a chef who had spent his life being told his food was the pinnacle of sophistication tasted something made with garlic, vinegar, soy sauce, and the memory of 1,000 dinners, he discovered that complexity is not just in technique. It's in history, in struggle, in the way a recipe becomes a language between generations. In the end, Filipino adobo didn't leave everyone speechless because it was shockingly fancy. It left them speechless because it reminded them of someone they loved. Even if they'd never been to the Philippines, a grandmother, a mother, an auntie who cooked the same dish over and over, not to impress, but to sustain. And that, in the secret rankings of the human heart, will always beat any trophy on a shelf.